Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 225 of NoDQ&A video, right here on youtube.com/NoDQCAW, and as always, NoDQ.com, your source for TNA final resolution coverage this Sunday. You can check out NoDQ for all the results and news. With that out of the way, let's get right down to your questions. This first one comes from BJ Nation. Hey Aaron, considering John Cena is getting a shot at Dolph Ziggler's briefcase, do you think he would go on to face Big Show at the Royal Rumble? Also, if this was to happen, do you think that they would unify WWE and World titles at WrestleMania, considering Rock wins the Rumble? This is an interesting idea you bring up. John Cena versus The Rock, unification match at WrestleMania. I just don't see it happening as long as Raw and SmackDown are running separate house shows. If you unify the titles, then one of those house shows is not going to have a world title match, and I just don't think WWE wants to do that at this point. I think a unification is unlikely right now, unless WWE decides to completely get rid of the brand extension, but it doesn't seem like they're interested in doing that right now. So no, I don't see a unification match. What I think should happen, and what I expect to happen, is that Dolph Ziggler will somehow beat John Cena at Money in the Bank. I think it's a bad idea to have Ziggler lose the briefcase at this point. They've been building him up, and he has a lot of momentum. He beat Randy Orton at Survivor Series. I think you would just erase all that by having Ziggler lose the briefcase. And you can always have John Cena continue to try to get the title shot, maybe win the Rumble, or even not win the Rumble and win Elimination Chamber, or somehow get the title match at WrestleMania. Just having him win the briefcase makes it too obvious and too predictable. I just think it's a bad idea. This one comes from Coolman23. Hey Aaron, if The Rock wants to do one more heel turn, do you think he could pull it off? Of course, The Rock could pull off anything. He can be a great babyface. He can be a great heel. But the thing is, I just don't think fans will boo The Rock no matter what he says. He could say that the city he's in is the absolute worst city in the world, and I think people would still cheer him. The Rock has that legendary status now where it's very difficult for fans to boo him. They just have so much respect for him as a performer and all the things he's done. And he's a legend. It's like Ric Flair. Whenever they try to turn Ric Flair heel in recent years, it just doesn't work because Ric Flair is a legend, and people just they've had so many memories with him, and he's an idol, and you can't turn him heel. It just doesn't work. And The Rock could be, like I said, the best heel in the world. He could play the role perfectly, and people will still cheer him. So nothing against The Rock. It's The Rock. The Rock has the ability. You asked the question here, could he pull it off? He has the ability, but I just don't think the fans would boo him. This one comes from SodFan87. What was your overall opinion on the 2001 Royal Rumble? Well, if Sod stands for System of a Down, I really like your username, but getting to the question, I think it was a very good Royal Rumble overall. I think that the ladder match between Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit stole the show. The big highlight being when Chris Jericho had the Walls of Jericho, Lion Tamer, whatever you want to call it, on top of the ladder. That was a really cool, memorable spot. And the Royal Rumble match was very memorable. You had Kane going on a rampage during the match. I was not a big fan of Drew Carey being in the match. I thought that was stupid. But beyond that, it was a very entertaining Royal Rumble, and Steve Austin picked up a big win. So yeah, I think that it was a very good Royal Rumble. Certainly among the better Royal Rumble pay-per-views. This one comes from Ricky Lawson. Hey Aaron, what are your thoughts on the comments Tyler Rex made on Twitter about John Cena? Do you think he was just bitter like Ken Doan, or was he just speaking the truth? Well, nobody really knows for sure. It's all gossip, and it's his word against somebody else's word. You don't really know for sure who's telling the truth or whatever. It does come off to me like he's bitter and just trying to get attention. But then again, he's he walked away. He chose to get out of WWE, and maybe there is something to what he's saying. I mean, there's really no way to know, and it does seem like he's trying to draw attention, because it happened with Ken Doan and other people where they speak out, and they want to get back into the spotlight, and sometimes you don't know how much you really how much something really means to you until it's gone, and when he loses that spotlight, he could be yearning for it again, and this is his way of getting his name out in the public eye again. Maybe he wants to trend on Twitter again. Who knows? This one comes from JJ666. Hey Aaron, what are your thoughts on Undertaker's Ministry era? Should it lasted longer? Yeah, I mean, it could have lasted a lot longer. The thing about the Attitude Era is that there were so many storylines that went by so quickly. That was just the nature of the period. Television was very fast-paced, and a lot of storylines progressed very quickly, and before you knew it, they were over, and there was a new storyline that had developed. It would have been nice to see the Ministry Era continue on for a longer period, but I also think there were a lot of other characters and storylines that could have gotten more mileage. I always thought the Too Cool with Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty and Brian Christopher, I felt that faction could have gone on longer, and I think they turned Rikishi heel way too soon. He had a lot of momentum as a babyface, and they cut it off, and he was never really the same after that. So I mean, there were a lot of different things in WWE that could have lasted longer, and but like I said, that was just how things went in the Attitude Era. Television just moved very quickly, and during the Monday Night Wars, that's just the way it was. This one comes from Deval David 9. What was the best year ever to watch TNA? Mine was 2008. I think there are a couple really good years in TNA. I think that 2004 and 2005, that period, was one of the best creatively in TNA, and just the in-ring product was top-notch. I think it was a period when the wrestlers were they were really determined to make TNA work. I think that they had a lot of motivation, and it really showed in the ring. AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, all of them were at the top of their game. So I think that was a great product for that reason in the ring. Creatively, I know a lot of people are not a big fan of Vince Russo, but I think that 2009 was a good period in TNA. I think the Main Event Mafia was a believable faction, and even though they didn't really establish new talent and the new talent didn't really get over, I felt that group worked really well together, and I liked the storyline with Mick Foley and Sting. Promo-wise, I think that period was one of the strongest in TNA with Sting and Mick Foley going back and forth. I just really enjoyed that stuff in TNA. And when the Main Event Mafia took over Impact, and you had Booker T and Scott Steiner on commentary, I just was very entertained by that period. And the in-ring work was still really good too. I mean, Bound for Glory was a really good pay-per-view that year. The Turning Point pay-per-view the next month was one of the best pay-per-views TNA ever put out. When Nigel McGuinness was in there against Kurt Angle, and the rematch, the Samoa Joe versus Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe, that triple threat match was awesome. So I mean, yeah, that was a very good year for TNA. So I would say either 2004, 2005, or 2009. This one comes from Truth MMA. Hey Aaron, with WWE recently taking ideas from TNA, any chance we will see WWE take the idea of cutting pay-per-views to possibly having 6 or 8 pay-per-views a year? I personally feel WWE could benefit from this if they're keeping the 3-hour Raw shows. Well, it is an interesting experiment. I think that if TNA is successful with cutting the pay-per-views, if their buy rates increase now because of cutting pay-per-views, I could see WWE doing something similar. But the problem is, if you're cutting pay-per-views, you're losing money. So you really have to make up for it. The pay-per-view buy rates have to increase if you're cutting down pay-per-views. So I think WWE might cautiously experiment with it. We could see 1 or 2 pay-per-views cut, and that's what TNA is doing right now. They're cutting out at least 2 pay-per-views for the time being, and I think that's the best way to go. At least for they're cutting out 1 pay-per-view to build up to Lockdown, so there'll be a 2-month period to build up to Lockdown, and same thing with Bound for Glory. There'll be a 2-month period to build up, and I think that that's a positive. And we'll see. Time will tell. If the buy rates improve, then we could see more pay-per-views being cut in the future. So it's an experiment, and it's best to take it cautiously. And I could see WWE doing the same thing in the months and maybe years to come. We'll just have to wait and see. All right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of No DQ&A video. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com, like I said, for all the latest news regarding Final Resolution this Sunday. And I'll see you next time for more No DQ&A video.